Welcome to Founder Files, the podcast for growth minded leaders, investors, and operators shaping the future of business. Each episode dives into the critical decisions behind scaling, from finance and fundraising to leadership, strategy, and technology. Founder Files is powered by Cypher, the AI powered and human led finance partner helping growing companies scale with clarity and confidence. Learn more at cypherfin.com. Welcome back to Founder Files. Today's episode is about understanding audits and why and when they matter. Audits have a way of showing up at the worst possible time. And for many founders, that's when they realize their financials aren't as clean or as ready as they thought. In this conversation, we're going to break down why companies need audits and when having audit-ready financials becomes necessary, how VCs, PEs, lenders, and other stakeholders think about audits, the difference between an audit and M&A due diligence, and what founders can do to always be audit ready. It's audit season, and some of you may be stressed out about a potential upcoming audit. This episode is about understanding expectations, avoiding costly mistakes, and protecting credibility as your company scales. Today, I'm joined by Rawan, audit director at Weaver with over a decade of public accounting experience across commercial, energy, government, and benefit plan audits. She began her career at Weaver as an intern and now plays a key role in audit methodology, firm-wide training, and integrating global teams into the audit practice, giving her a front-row view into where private companies struggle most and what auditors actually look for. And fun
Yes.
fact, Rowan also went to the same college I went to. They were in the same class. So I'm super excited to be here with you, Rowan, to do
Yeah.
this episode with you.
Yes, good to see you. And thanks for having me. Excited to talk about anything audits. But yeah, I can't believe it's been a decade since we graduated college and I've been doing this. So
what a full circle moment. It's really exciting to do this together now,
yeah,
10 years later,
I
or even
know.
longer, right? Okay, so let's dive in. Maybe let's talk first about why anyone would need an audit. Why a company would need an audit.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of companies usually need an audit when they reach a certain stage where like stakeholders like lenders, boards, management want confidence in the numbers that they're looking at, right? So they get an auditor like myself at Weaver, where we're independent from the portfolio company and we do pretty much this unbiased check to make sure the numbers are accurate and it actually does reflect reality and the company's financial practices are running the way they should be. And typically an audit, like I would say sometimes it's required and sometimes it's just nice to have to build trust. So it's required typically when companies maybe they're going out to get capital, right? So they need money from the banks, maybe the lenders are putting it in their debt covenants to get an audit. So you'll see that triggers like an audit. And I would say sometimes it is nice to have. I think even though like, there might be no demand to get an audit, but I think companies usually can tell from an audit whether their processes that are in place are actually working. It gives like stakeholders comfort that, the financials look good. But I would say in short, like I think audits do help companies grow responsibly, whether it's required or voluntary, right? And it gives, again, like the founders, the lenders, management comfort that the financials are strong.
Yeah, I love that. So if there are any companies that are going to raise capital from potentially a VC, PE, or just get a loan from a lender, have you seen these investors actually request audits often,
Yeah.
or is it a case by case basis? How does that work?
Yeah, we've seen it across all types of investors, right? It's actually a lot more common that founders realizes. So you kind of mentioned VC, right? Venture capital. A lot of times it's required when they reach like the stage of funding, whether it's Series A, Series B, and they want to be confident in the financial that they're looking at to value their company, and that could be because they're going for like maybe another round of fundraising, right? So it could be like Series C, Series D, or they're getting to an exit, right? So a lot of times an audit is like it's triggered, right? Or it's good to have. You mentioned private equity. Private equity, like at Weaver, a lot of our clients are private equity backed. I would say a lot of my clients are private equity backed, and it's usually yeah, like first year they might let them, like, they'll invest in them, but they might need an audit, but the second year they're like, okay, now you need a required audit. And a lot of times that's triggered because a lot of investors, they're not part of the day-to-day operation, right? They're just, they're funding money, but they want to see financials that are audited by a third party to make sure the company is doing well, and they're preparing it, right? We know a lot of private equity, a lot of times the deals is like they
Yeah.
invest in them, they maybe flip them, so they're going to go through due diligence and X, Y, and Z, and like they need audited financials to get confidence over the valuation of that company.
Yeah, that's actually really good to know and to take into consideration. So a lot of founders really feel like if they're going into either exiting or raising or going into some M&A transaction, that if they are ready from an M&A due diligence standpoint, they're also feel like they're also audit ready. Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that right?
There's a difference, right? Like, I think an audit and M&A, they are different. They complement each other, but they are different, right? So from an audit, the way I think about it is more backward looking, right? We're going back to audit stuff that already happened, right? The historical information that already happened, and we're making sure it's GAAP compliant. But an M&A is more forward looking, right? They're less interested whether it's GAAP compliant. They're more interested in like, okay, the financials today, what does that tell us about the value of the company in the future? So they're asking the questions like, okay, based on this financial, what does the company look like in the next 12 to 36 months? But in all, they're more like predicting the value of the company, and they're trying to look at risk that might impact deals. And yeah, so I think a lot, so I would say is auditors, we care more about compliance, and the due diligence team can really care more about the value. They answer different questions, but they really do complement each other's. And I think founders and CEOs find it like yeah, like you said, like where it's like it surprises them that it's like different, but it is different because, from an audit perspective, when we go in, we're just sampling certain transaction. I'm not testing every single account. I'm just
Yeah.
sampling a transaction. But I'm gonna M&A due diligence, it can come down to they're looking at every transaction, every contract that they have in place, accounting policies that are in place. And when you have weak documentation and a weak like control environment, it can slow down these deals. And I've seen it where it comes down to like a dollar per dollar deal where we're auditing something, maybe the accruals are off by $200. They're like, oh, it's going to the working capital. $200 is immaterial sometimes, but it's going to the working capital. But yeah, I think a lot of founders do get surprised by it, but I think, being audit ready is good. And I think companies like you help companies get audit ready, right?
Oh yeah. And we've definitely seen deals break for the same reasons. So I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that up. So that's going to lead to my next question. What companies truly need to have in place to pass an audit successfully?
Yeah, no, like how do you get an A+ on an audit? I mean, there are certain essentials, right? You should have clean, timely financials, I would say, a reconciled book. Supporting documentation matter. It's really not just nice to have. You should have them, right? Especially if they're material. And I let companies figure out what's material for them. But if you have material transaction, you really should have supporting documentations around those material balances. I would say like a basic internal control structure, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but like, some segregation of duties, processes in place that you're making sure like, your month end close is actually going well. I always tell clients like you don't have to be perfect, right? But you should have a process that's like reliable and it's repeatable. Like you can do it every month so you're not missing major, accounting issues.
So, what are some of the top three mistakes that you've come across, whether it's US GAAP or maybe something that came from internal controls that caused financials to break?
Yeah, good question. I think the top three, I would say, accruals. Accruals are so easy to miss, right? Like a lot of times I'll meet clients and they're like, yeah, we're on accrual basis, and we start auditing them. They are, but then they picked and chose what accruals they should have, right? Like they
Yeah.
missed the vacation accrual, they missed the bonuses, the PTOs, or maybe they have a legal matter that they know they're gonna have to pay for
Yeah.
this. They should accrue for it under GAAP, right? But I would say accrual is one. I think revenue recognition is definitely
Huge.
one. Yes, I think companies often think like billing is revenue, right? Like they forget about the performance obligation. They fail to take into account those all those variable considerations that were
Yeah.
required, depending on the industry that you're in. But I feel like that is, I would say, revenue recognition is probably one of the number one areas that
Yes.
companies trip up. But yeah, I would say revenue recognition, accruals. Another thing that we see with like startup companies and companies that are scaling is equity, like ASC 718, stock compensation. I think a lot of times, options are granted, but they're recorded incorrectly, or they're missing like fair value calculation, or the vesting schedules don't really tie out, or they're ignored, or cap tables just don't tie out. And those like equity becomes really sensitive when there's an exit or there's a due diligence, right? So it's just something to watch out for, because I promise you, when a company is selling and they're selling it for millions and billions of dollars, and if you have units, they're coming after you. They're
Of
coming after you.
course.
You have to have records that, to value what their units are. So, yeah, that's those are just some common um gap
Yeah.
mistakes that we typically see.
I would have literally answered the same. It's exactly the top three that we've always paid attention to, and then also we always make sure that everyone has a reconciling package, even if you're not being audited, and even if you're a
Right.
younger company startup, because you're eventually looking to be eventually going through a transaction in the future. So why not start it now and just get
Yeah.
used to having this habit? So keep it track of
Yeah.
supporting documentation, and
Right.
if someone knocks on your door, you have it ready and you don't have to go through that pain to clean everything up and redocument everything.
Yeah, it just shows, like, honestly, it shows like financial maturity, right? When companies scale, that they're
Yeah.
audit ready. And I'm sure for you see this a lot. It's a lot more costly when the financials are not, they're not
Oh,
audit
yes.
ready,
And
right?
painful.
Like,
So painful.
yeah, I mean, from my side, like we see a lot of over billings because we spent a lot of times, like, working with management to get the accruals right, or the equity right, or the rev rec right.
Mm.
But leases is something a lot of companies might like
Least-
fail to record, like under 842. But yeah, I'm sure you've seen it the same, but I think it just becomes really costly and expensive to do the cleanup.
So what expertise would you recommend the finance team to have? Like you talked about working with management to get these things cleaned up. What expertise do you expect management and the finance team to have to avoid
Yeah.
these issues?
Oh, yeah, good question. It's probably like a combination of all three. Like you should have blended skill set, right? I think technical accounting knowledge is key, right? Someone who
Yeah.
really understands GAAP. Again, back to the rev rec and the leases and equity, it would be great to have somebody that understand those accounting policies. And an operational accounting team, right? A good controller in place that can do a monthly checklist. They can implement control, and then just like maintain reconciliation. I think that would be good. One thing that we see a lot is like systems and automation. I think a lot of times companies stay on spreadsheets and Excel for too long, right?
Yeah.
Like as the company grows, they really, and I know like systems can be really expensive, especially for VCs or like new founders that are starting their companies. Like it can be really expensive, but I promise you, like systems do pay themselves later on, right? It does save a lot of hours and
Of
costs just from that. So I would say systems, and we're now entering into this new era of AI and automation, right? So there's a lot of companies that are starting to think about like how can I automate certain processes, but if you don't understand your system, that could be an issue. So you probably like how can you automate something if you don't understand it? So but I would say, yeah, a blended skill set, like I said, like technicality, a good accounting team, and then probably a strategic finance team, right? Like a CFO, a VP of finance who, can build forecast or can manage investors' expectations, right? Like these PE backed and VC backed. Like you want somebody that can understand how to manage their expectations too.
Yeah.
And then somebody that can, I would say somebody that can tie financial reporting into the growth of the company. So I always tell companies you don't have to have a giant team, but you do need the right mix of team that can understand
Mhm.
compliance and business.
Thank you so much, Rawan. This was amazing. Really great
Yeah.
insight. I think we're very much aligned on a lot of the things that you spoke about. Me, myself, being a previous auditor, so
Yeah.
you're actually reminding me of my good audit days. So it
Yeah.
was really great doing this with you. Thank you so much for this
Of
episode.
course. Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me anytime. I love to talk about anything audit.
Anything audit? Okay, love it. We'll see you in the next episode then.